Hello, good people. I want to speak to you today about graphics in the research report. This document that's on the screen is available in Learning Materials. And I'm just going to read it to you and elaborate on some of the items that are on this document that is yours to refer to again and again. But in the big paper, you must have two relevant, that's the key word, graphics in your report, which should take up the total equivalent of no more than one page in your 12 to 15 page paper. But if you write a longer report or utilize smaller but usable graphics, you can have more than two. What I'm looking for overall is that about a page worth of space, no more, can be inhabited by graphics. If you've got more than two that are usable. You don't want to put something in that's ridiculous. These must be readable and useful, and they must be relevant. And I'll explain what that means. But these graphics, as I put here, these graphics may be either made by you, and there's some examples here that's using cited information, or they can just be ones you found. Maybe there's a cool graphic in the article, by all means use it. But all graphics must conform to these requirements. They must accurately present real information, not mere decoration, relevant to the actual text. You're writing and have ideas that are being expressed through words. These graphics need to relate to what you've actually written. In technical report writing, they always do that. In more popular journalism and other publications, there are graphics that are decorative at some level. And that's not what you want. You want to have information-laden graphics. You need to introduce them in the text. Let's see Figure 1. And placed after a reference somewhere in the same page or the next page. And you document them in 8-point Times New Roman font. And here are some examples, and I want to explain what you're looking at. Please look at this document with some care. Tables. Here is some text that was from an actual report I received. He was writing about RFID documentation. You saw an outline of his paper in the document that was showing you sample outlines. This fellow was really good. He was a joy to have in class, and he wrote well and thought well, but this is a paragraph from his paper, and it just goes on a little bit. And he mentions, as you'll notice, he's discussing, you can read this more carefully on your own, please do, but he's discussing that the RFID radio frequencies are typically divided into 4 categories as seen in Figure 2. So he's referencing, he had another figure prior, this is Figure 2, and he keeps writing text. Then he has Figure 2. When you write in text Figure 2, just for the record, you can place your graphic any time after that makes sense. It can be on the same page or it can be on the next page. It doesn't have to be immediately after you see Figure 2. But he has this graphic here, and this is awesome. He made this. And what he's doing is showing in one graphic information that would have required him pages to write. So rather than making the decision to puff up his paper, he made the wise writer decision to take this information that's frankly awkward to read and rather boring and made it into a dynamic graphic. This is a table. I love tables. That's one form of graphic you can use. A table I love for 2 reasons. One is you can do them in Word and it actually works. And by their very nature, you are forced to present information, not decoration. And this is laden with information. You can study this for a good long while. My goodness, all kinds of information. The frequency range here, the market share, how many of the RFID devices they are this type, how far it can be read from, the speed of the signal, etc., what they're used for. This is just beautiful. Over here, microwave RFID up here, it's road toll system. Oh, you can read that on your own. It's fascinating stuff. But all this information he got himself, paraphrased, summarized, and whatnot, and put it in this form. It's beautiful. And these are the sources he actually used. Notice how he writes it. Compiled by the author using data from the following sources, : and there in 8-point font is a complete, it's edition 6, not the most current, but a complete reference, not a citation, but a complete reference. There it is for 2 sources he used to make this. Excellent piece. I wish I could have given them extra credit for that. Basically, the way I grade this is I go through your paper and I make sure, okay, are there 2 graphics? Do they do the job? And if they're there, I go on. If they're not, or they're not doing the job, then I deduct points. I should have given them extra points for working so hard and doing it so well. It's a good job. Here's another table type graphic. And she was writing, this is from Smart Growth. You can see it in the full context of her paper if you wish. But she mentions Figure 2 offers a helpful summary of the differences in land use strategies between urban sprawl and smart growth. And there she found this source, and there's a complete reference for it. And again, graphics, I don't buy that picture is worth 1,000 words nonsense because I'm a writer. And I personally think that many times writing is better than pictures or graphics, because when you're writing, it forces an engagement by your audience. And if you're writing, especially non-technical writing that has heavily connotative language, people are creating their own images, and it's powerful and dynamic. So I don't buy into the a picture is worth 1,000 words because of that. But especially in something like technical writing, there is a place for this sort of presentation of information because it's efficient. It's very clear. It also functions better than just running text for multicultural audiences sometimes. So this is definitely a feature of technical reports, research reports, that is good, that's valid, that's appropriate. And you should have 2 good examples of graphics. And the tables are almost always excellent. Now you can do graphs. And there are different types of graphs. There are bar graphs, and I'm just giving you a few. These weren't from sources. I just pulled them. But that's an option. You can certainly present information like that. This shows the numbers of subscribers in various years in these countries. We can look at that, bang, and just see the growth, etc., over a period of time. It's kind of interesting that items kind of varied with the countries. You could study that and pull all kinds of information. Circle graphs, pie charts, they're good for percentages, parts of the whole. And this is from the RFID paper again. And he had 3 figures because he had a long paper and did it well. He didn't just have 2. But again, this is part of his text. It's part of the problems with RFID is generating lots of data. And there's a pie chart. You can certainly create or find a pie chart to present information. Down here, a line graph, that lets you know information that's going in a sequence. They can be useful for certain kinds of information. Another option, I'm not sure you would use it here, but organization charts are always a possibility for certain information. I've seen the one here at Dell Tech, and it just confuses me. I mean, just goes on and on. I do know that I have a lot of bosses. Flowchart, this is just a goof. I used to have this in my man shed, I used to call it. But flowcharts are good for information. In fact, I love these sorts of charts. I used to use them. I used to work on my lawnmower and various things, and there would be flowcharts sometimes where you could diagnose a problem. I've seen this kind of flowchart happen for diagnosing diseases and whatnot. Depending on what you're writing, there might be an occasion for a flowchart. I just think that's goofy. It's kind of a southern engineering. Okay, WD-40 and duct tape, you fix just about everything temporarily. Diagrams are fun. Here's a diagram. Again, the RFID paper comes up. And what a diagram does is present a simplified picture of an item, and the diagram has explanation. And I found this rather fascinating because I used to pull apart packaging and there would be this weird little item and this graphic helped me to see what it was. Diagrams can be quite useful for conveying information. There's another diagram from the Smart Growth paper. Again, she's writing. She mentions the idea of meandering streets and whatnot, and no internal connectivity. And this is a picture that shows us, my gosh, there is no internal connectivity. You just ride around all over the place and not go anywhere in the suburbs, which I actually kind of like, but I see your point. Photographs. These are not really suitable for a technical report. It's lame to put a photograph. In fact, I put this photograph here because I had a student years ago was writing on dangers of sport utility vehicles. And he mentioned one of the dangers of sport utility vehicles, this is back when most of them tended to be big trucky affairs, was that he put in a sentence that if a SUV has an accident with a compact car, see figure 1, great damage could ensue or something like that. And he had a picture sort of like this. That's lame. Pictures have their place, but rarely. Rarely is a picture the best way to convey information. Years ago, when I didn't know what I was doing in this class, I had a woman writing about rheumatoid arthritis. And I told him, hey, you have to have graphics. And she said, I don't know which of these to use, Mr. Ray. And she had a picture of a knee, an actual photograph of a knee that had been cut open so that you could see the joint. And it showed what an arthritic knee looked like. And I'm looking at it, and it just looked like something you get at the butcher shop. Say, hey, I wrap that for me, make soup out of it. It just looked like a bunch of meat and gristle. It was not informative. And she had another one that also showed a knee, and it was just a mere diagram. It was a line drawing, kind of like one of these, that showed a knee drawn out very simply, very simple lines, so you could easily see it with little arrows pointing at different elements that showed how the rheumatoid arthritis had deteriorated the joint and how just looking at it hurt, even though it wasn't as bloody and graphic and meaty as the other one. So seldom is a photograph what you should use. And I just want to point out certain graphics are just stupid. This pictograph you never want to use in a technical report. They came out in the 80s with a magazine or newspaper in a more of a magazine format called USA Today. And every day they had a little graphic, a pictograph of sorts that gave you information. Not that this couldn't give you information, but all a pictograph is, in this case, is just a bar chart. So just give us a bar chart and don't be so cheesy with it. It looks tacky. So that gives you some options for graphics. Again, they can be made, they can be found, they have to be cited. And I think if you'll read this document, it'll just help you out. There's some fun things to look at and ponder. And you need to find some items. Now, there used to be some sites you could go to find graphics and in the library, but they're not there anymore. But what you can do, I hope I can do this quickly, I'm running out of time, is you can go to Google, there's Google, comes up, and image search might yield something. That's always an option. I'm thinking most of you have a graphic or two that you found already, but if you have nothing, this can work in absence of anything else. Insomnia, it's a sample, and I'm getting all kinds of pictures. Now, many of them are just lame, but you might look out. In fact, if you look long enough, you probably will. If you change your keywords, you may find a graphic that can work in the technical report. And you load it, make sure it's from a good source, get the full documentation information. That's not the best graphic. But if you look, you can probably find something. I've never had a situation where somebody that just wasn't an abject slacker wasn't able to get a couple of graphics put together to put in a report. So that's a strategy. There used to be a few more. Statista you used to could look at the library, but they no longer subscribe that. And you may have some other places. All of you can Google from the comfort of your home and your isolation. And if you take your time, adjust your keyword search terms, eventually you'll find something, I think. That's all. Again, if you have questions, email me. Follow the protocol. I sent that out to you. Make sure you give me everything I need to serve you if you want to ask me a question. Be well, and we'll catch you the next time around. Bye.